Hi, I'm Richard Bergman with ideasfordeckdesigns.com, and today I'm in the Pacific Northwest, and I wanted to show you an example of how not to actually build a deck in terms of some of the carpentry skills, some of the materials that were selected, and some of the installation techniques. Normally I like to talk about how to do things properly on the site, but sometimes it also helps to see how not to do something. So let's start with materials. This particular deck is more like a porch. It's entry level and a few stairs down. Very simple. But what the builder did here is used fencing material, 1x6 fencing material, for all of the deck boards and the stair treads, and that's a problem. One of the things you'll notice if you can get in close here is that as fence boards, the edges are very square, they're not rounded, and that means that we end up with problems where it chips as you're walking up, and we have a lot of knots. You see, when you use fencing lumber, is usually a lower grade of lumber, and we're already starting to see knots pop out. You can see one there that's ready to go, and if we come up here, this one already has. So that's a problem. The other thing is that because it's a thinner material, it's more susceptible to cupping if it's installed the wrong way. Up here we have a board that's actually cupped this way. Now, you got to be careful which direction you set the grain. The grain will, if it's cupped the wrong way, if the grains run the wrong way and it gets soaked, the board wants to expand, so it will actually cup the wrong way and actually hold water, as we're seeing here. This is definitely going to reduce the longevity of this deck. And the last thing I'd like to mention, when you use 1x6 for stair treads, the problem that you have is that even if you use a proper bullnose, and this is too much. This bullnose here is almost 2 inches. So you can with enough foot pressure, you will eventually crack this off and break it off. It cannot cantilever that far. You should be using a 5/4 board or even a 2x6 board for your stair treads. And with that, they come milled with a rounded edge, and it's much more suitable to foot traffic, and it's less susceptible to the cupping that we've got here. So that's what I want to say with regards to the materials we've got here. Very problematic. I'd like to talk about some of the carpentry techniques that you should consider when you're building a set of stairs like this, especially on the coast here where there's a lot of rain. You're going to need to space the deck boards further apart to promote water flow. Here we've got them touching each other in most cases, and this is a problem because when it rains for 6 months over the winter here, it's going to start rotting in here. The other thing is when you install the tread against the riser, you should try to leave a 1/4 inch or an 1/8 inch space at the back here. Does that two things benefit as a result of that. One is it keeps this dry, and it keeps rot from developing in the corner here. So that's just something you should build into your technique. Now, another really important thing here is this deck here is connected to the floor level of the house. And what we've got here, unfortunately, is a bit of a hatchet job. There is no proper ledger attachment here. There should have been flashing, a whole host of things. It's really a disaster, and it's an invitation for rot over the long term. We'll go in a little closer and show you. The builder here attached the deck directly to the house, right on the first floor joist here. But unfortunately, it's done very poorly. He just did a bit of a hatchet job here. He cut away the first row of siding, exposed the sheeting to the house. There was no Tyvek or house wrap here, and he didn't put any metal flashing in. So to do this properly, you want to slope this away from the deck a 1/4 inch for every 12 inches away is a safe slope. You want to put metal flashing against the house, put your ledger board against that, bolt it through, maybe put some flat washers behind the ledger board so you get some airflow. And then over top, and then you can connect your deck to that ledger board if it's bolted properly. And over top of that, a second piece of metal flashing would go. It would go up high, maybe 4 or 6 inches under this piece of siding, and it would bend over the edge of the fascia board. And what that'll do is it'll ensure that no matter what way the rain comes, it'll always drain away. It'll never get in behind. You've got a ledger attachment that's dry, it's strong, and it'll last a lifetime. This next point I want to mention has more to do with some of the installation techniques here and a bit of carpentry skills here. You'll notice that this post and the stair tread are sitting directly on the concrete pad, and that is an invitation for rot. This is going to be a disaster in as little as 2 or 3 years, because the end grain has capillaries in it, and even as a piece of wood, it still remembers that it acts like a straw and it sucks up water. You can already see all the sediment here, the sand from the rainwater. We know that this is an area that probably pools water. What you could have done is taken some lag bolts with a hex head, screwed them up underneath the post and underneath the tread, and that would allow you access with a wrench to actually turn the screw, the hex head screw, and play with the level perfectly, because this is a stamped concrete deck and it's irregular, and by using a hex head lag, a hot dip galvanized lag or stainless, you can get in from the side and keep that elevated a good 1/4 inch. That's a very important factor. Now, when you're building a set of stairs, one thing you have to keep in mind is you should be a little bit cautious when you're cutting the notches. In this case, this fella, I can tell, used a circular saw and wasn't paying attention to the other side of the blade. He's overcut on each of these treads, notches here, so the effective width of this particular tread is probably less than 3 inches. Not a good thing. You should get in there with a handsaw. Once the saw reaches the circular saw can't cut any further, it's reached that line, finish the cut with a handsaw, and you won't have any of this problem here. In a rainy climate, particularly here, when you build wood railings, you've really got to think about how you're going to ensure that they can avoid premature rot. Here we've got 2 1x1s or 3/4 by 3/4 trim pieces holding these pickets, these balusters in place, and water's going to pool in here. So this is like a lab experiment on how fast can you rot a deck rail. What should have been done, if they're going to go with this, which is questionable, they could have drilled holes through the center here, so at least it promotes a little water flow. You should also consider that. One of the things that struck me as very odd is how and careless this builder actually connected this railing post to the house. He, as you can see, took a skill saw and cut around the shape, the profile of the post, right through the siding, and there's no Tyvek wrap here. The sheeting of the house is now completely exposed to weather. It's just an absolute hatchet job. I would never recommend you do this. If you're going to connect a post to a house, which is fine, and you must do it, you really should try to do it through the top rail with some kind of a bracket and as few fastener contact points as possible, because you're going to be going through the siding, which is questionable. Some people don't recommend that, but if you do it, you want to make sure that you get into something significantly substantial to hold it on the other side. And then you're going to have to watch from time to time, put some caulking here to make sure that it's maintained over the years, if you're going to do it that way. But here we've just got a complete hatchet job. Well, I hope you've learned a little bit about how not to build a deck. Normally I would like to tell you how to do it. Sometimes, as I say, seeing how not to do it is also very effective in teaching people. Otherwise, they've got a lovely backyard here with great exposure, and you could have something nice, but try to avoid these pitfalls when you're working on your backyard.